So welcome everyone to the Co-Creators Convergence Thursday night creator combo. And we have a very, very dynamic, funny, creative. She's kind of out of this world in more ways than one. So in a little bit, you'll meet our dear friend, Kimberly, hosted by Kathy Mason. Kimberly Clark Sharp, hosted by Kathy Mason. So my name is Noelle Marshall. I'm here with my beloved Bob Warner, and together we call ourselves Light Partners, and we facilitate the Co-Creators Convergence Thursday night calls, and they're always so great. So if you're on Facebook, any questions, comments, just put it in the chat. We'll be monitoring the chat there. You're also welcome to join us in the Zoom room itself. So right now, what I'd like to do, Bob, I'd like to turn it over to you for the commemoration.
Sure. Thank you. Today is an auspicious day. 76 years ago today, about 1 hour and 3 minutes ago, United States of America dropped a bomb on Hiroshima. Days later, Nagasaki. Many people in this country don't know that the people of Japan have been dedicated to peace since that time in ways that I only wish that the United States and all other countries would acknowledge and commemorate, and live with inner peace and with outer peace amongst our fellow humans, fellow Americans, fellow humans of this planet. So today, there's a special event for a couple of hours by May Peace Prevail on Earth International, which is concluding shortly. And we'd like to add our energy of the Co-Creators Convergence community, of those in the Zoom room, those on Facebook, and those that will be watching this recording at some time in the future. The fact is that there is no such thing as time. So you too, watching this recording 3 months from now, can take 1 minute to acknowledge our global desire for peace. And so I'm going to invite everyone that's on the Zoom call this evening, all those in Facebook, to hold for a minute in peace, silence in your heart, love in your heart, for world peace. Thank you, and may peace prevail on earth.
So thank you, Bob, for that. And it's a very solemn commemoration. And life goes on, as we also want to bring forward so many other wonderful things happening on this planet. And that's kind of the mission of the Co-Creators Convergence, is to, inspired by our dear teacher, Barbara Marx Hubbard, who is a visionary, a futurist. And she would always ask us, what is your gift to the shift in humanity? So tonight, one of the gifts was just observing that minute of silence. And we have, every Thursday night, we invite another guest to share their gift to the shift in humanity. So without any further ado, I want to introduce one of the primo members of the Co-Creators Convergence, Kathy Mason of Mason Works Marketing, who brings us so many wonderful guests. And on her, well, it's bi-weekly, she brings guests to her Conscious Business Zone on Facebook. She's also very involved with IANS, the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And through her volunteer work there, she meets some very, very unusual folks who have had that experience. And so tonight she's going to bring one of her dear friends, Kimberly Clark Sharp. So
Okay, well, I am very, very happy to have this conversation with Kimberly. We have been on committees for years already, and she's always so much fun to be with, because the more that you're around people that have had near-death experiences, and that people that have embraced their experience and want to learn more about it, the more you feel like you're in a heart-opened space and home. And so Kimberly she actually started the IANS Seattle organization. Is that 40 years ago?
39.
39, oh my gosh. And so you can say she has done so many amazing things and has so many fantastic stories and a delightful sense of humor. So first of all, where would you like to start, Kimberly? Do you want to start with your near-death experience and how you got interested in it, and then the IANS, or how would you like to talk about it?
Well, I've changed my mind midstream here. What I would like to do first is talk about 76 years ago today. I kept quiet during all of that, the meditation and the conversation before then, but I've got connections to that site. I'm talking about Hiroshima.
Right.
One is this, which came from the blast site.
Wow.
And I have that because in the late 90s, our family, because of my husband, traveled all around Japan as he gave speeches and VIP level speeches. So we got VIP treatment. One of our places was in Hiroshima. So we were set up in the Sun Hotel, which is on the corner from the Peace Park. There's no other hotel around the Peace Park. We were on the 7th floor, which is exactly where the bomb didn't hit the ground.
Oh.
It was set to blast 7 stories above the ground for the greatest damage. And we were at 7 stories. So fine, the next day we were walking over to we also had a child, and a Caucasian child in Japan at that time was very rare. So pretty soon there was a parade, really because of our daughter, but a much older Japanese woman came up to me and pulled me over, and she's the one who gave me this. And I wonder, she didn't speak English. We weren't with a translator, but she successfully conveyed that this is where it came from. And I'm wondering if she didn't have a near-death experience or something, because the other thing about being there is that Hiroshima is just full of the NDE vibe. It's like twang, 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 twang. They are so dedicated to peace.
Right.
And it's a collective consciousness that is palpable. I mean, it's amazing. So that's one thing. Been there and experienced the Peace Park and the museum, and now something I keep on my desk to remind me, we just can't ever do that again, even though we keep pushing in that direction. The other thing is that I'm a cancer survivor. And my husband happens, the same guy, is a twin. And he is married. So my brother-in-law, Denny, is married to a Nisei from Japan, which means her parents were from Japan. And when I had cancer, I had qualified, quote unquote, for a protocol out of Harvard, which combined radiation and chemotherapy. This was breast cancer. So the date, and it was like simultaneous, brand new protocol. I lived, by the way. I hate to give away the end of a good book. Oh yeah, and I wrote a book. Well, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Anyway, so knock on the door the night before radiation was to start, and there was my sister-in-law and her non-English speaking Japanese mother, and she came in and made a big pot of miso soup. It turns out the survivors, long-term survivors of the bombing, those that lived on miso soup, because that's really all that there was available, lived well into life. So since I was having radiation, she was going to give me homemade miso soup. So that was a connection. And then the last connection is that my godfather and my uncle, Dean, as a young divinity student, went to Nagasaki after the bomb was dropped there, and exposed to so much radiation still that he lost his hair and all of his fingernails. Anything related to hair was gone. But he came home with an orphan that was actually from Korea and had no chance to live in post-war Japan, especially Nagasaki, where, we can't fathom the disaster. Anyway, he brought him home. My grandparents adopted him, and I have this uncle Takuri Tay, also from the blast sites. So the subject is really important to me, and I want to thank Noelle and Bob for that meditation and for just whatever we can do to bring attention to peace in the world is what we're all about. So thank you for letting me get out of the way. To answer your question, why don't I just keep talking, but let's not forget the conference.
I won't forget the conference. Well, whatever's easiest for you. I know that I want you to tell some stories, the shoe story. I want you to tell whatever stories that you want from the Irons group. Basically, you guys, what I'm so excited about introducing you all to is this group of amazing beings that live in their heart. And they really have had a mystical experience and live it. They think about it every day. They see it. They feel other people that have had it. So when Kimberly's saying you can feel it, it's not just people that see dead people or talk to dead people or all of that stuff, which is always fun paranormal. But this is this group, beautiful group of heart-opened people that Kimberly helped start the whole shebang. The whole shebang.
Somebody had to do it. Well, I'm a social worker by trade. I'm actually a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Washington. And what I tell anybody interested in the field of social work is that you're not going to get paid well. You're going to work hard. But it's so much fun to see a need and then be able to step in and meet that need, to fill that need. And so that's what happened when the subject of near-death experiences came up. I mean, I sort of born for this, but I also taught in the School of Social Work, taught in the School of Medicine at the University of Washington for 20 years, became like the death and dying social worker locally. Pioneered something called critical care social work and founded the first social work department in the world's first bone marrow transplant center. At that time, half the people died and all of them were children. So I'm long in the tooth dealing with the subject of death, and I'm very good at bringing comfort to those who are facing death or are afraid of death, because I've been there and lived to tell the tale and have no fear of death any longer. I fear dying, though. I need to clarify. I fear dying. I mean, I'm ruling out fire, violence, any kind of suffering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not good.
The destination doesn't bother me. the journey, we have to stop breathing at some point, and that's like, yeah, bummer. But nonetheless, so, but, and then to again fill the social work need, I started, the Seattle International Association for Near-Death Studies group in Seattle. And we're a separate nonprofit organization, but strongly affiliated with Mother Ions, as we call it. And also, for those of you who get Netflix,
Yeah.
on Netflix, there is a series called Surviving Death. And episode 1 is on near-death experiences. And I cannot, I don't want to say can't endorse, but I wasn't involved in the rest of the series, which is on mediumship, after-death communications. All that, that's not my field. My field is squarely near-death experiences. But if you have Netflix, look for Surviving Death, episode 1. You'll
And
see me.
she's the star.
Anyway, I digress. Where were we? Oh, yes, dead. Why don't I jump to that?
Okay, wait. Oh my God. Oh yes, dead. Okay, so let's reframe this again. Basically, Kimberly has been doing this incredible work and gift of love for almost 40 years. And she started the Ion Seattle group 39 years ago. And she works as a social worker. And so she has helped a lot of people that over these years, you have to understand, there weren't people talking about this stuff. And a lot of people were afraid to talk about it because they would be ostracized, put on medication, put away, all these things. So Kimberly has seen this whole evolution of this, it's like a new category of paranormal experiences, but being brought into mainstream because there's been, in the past 40 years, there's been so many people resuscitated in the hospital and come back. They were on their way out the door and they came back. But so Kimberly has been one of the grounding rods, the center foundations of this whole new, what would you call it? It's almost a
I
science.
think it's a field that is, I don't put it strictly in paranormal, and I don't strictly put it in not paranormal.
Right.
It's that transition between normal and para, and then back to normal, because we have to come back. Well, we don't have to, but some are sent back, some choose to come back. And I just call it like end of life events. I mean, I would like for this to be more about the biology of dying and how we die when we go from biology to spirituality, because that's where we're all headed. This is a temporary, I have a million billion stories, but one of them is a near-death experiencer out of Seattle Ions who came back and said, we're meat puppets. That's what we are. We're just meat puppets.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so enjoy your meat puppetry.
Well, no, but what I want people to understand is that the energy, when people have touched the other side and then they get together, that this whole environment is for people to talk about it, be validated. You're not crazy. Yes, I've had this. No, I haven't that. But a lot of what the Ions group does is actually let experiencers find words for what has happened, correct?
Yes, which is a trick, because near-death experiencers, I think I've never met one who didn't say, I just don't have the words. I mean, finding words is hard. A near-death experience is, in fact, ineffable. There's two constants. The ineffability, which means there are no words in any language, and the sense of timelessness. in a near-death experience. So words, vocabulary, and time are earth experiences. But communication on the other side is perfect. It's just not flapping our jaws. It's a different and actually more efficient way to communicate. Again, I digress, but
Well, do you want to share your experience so people can relate to you?
yeah, sure. Well, the title of my talk, let's get formal, is an NDE life preview, the Emerald City and the shoe on the ledge. So I will touch each of those subjects.
Okay.
Yeah, so getting back, there I was dead. We're just, and that was like interesting, I guess. But the life preview, I'll get to, but I'll go back and talk about my dad's perspective because he was on the physical side. Just for some background info, I did have a witness to everything. This was 1970, May 25th, Shawnee Mission, Kansas. There was nothing in that day or time or location that had anything to do with what we call near-death experiences. It would just talk about no vocabulary. There was none. Not that people weren't having these experiences, it just was an unknown at that time. So anyway, I was with my dad at the Shawnee Mission Department of Motor Vehicles. And my side joke is, you know, you too would have a near-death experience if you can see the photo they took of me for my license. But again, it's just one woman's opinion. So beautiful Saturday morning, I felt great until I didn't. According to my father, we were just about to sign papers and leave. And I had been appropriate, but at some point I said I felt funny and wanted to sit down. There weren't any chairs, blah, blah, blah. So we're leaving the building. And then my dad said my complexion became white on white. And then I completely collapsed into and through his arms. Dead weight is heavier than live weight. So bonk, I went down to the sidewalk. There happened to be a uniformed nurse passing by. So she trotted over and she determined I didn't have a pulse and I didn't seem to be breathing. So this predates 911 by not much, but by a bit. So 2 phone calls were made. One to St. Luke's Hospital in Kansas City, Missouri, which was the closest hospital to my body, and then the Shawnee Mission Volunteer Fire Department. Well, the volunteer firefighters arrived first. They had a brand new portable ventilator, the Anderson ventilator, that had 2 features. One to, of course, ventilate, which is what you want in a ventilator. But the other, with a flick of a switch, would it would become a vacuum. So the reason we tell our children, don't run with candy in your mouth, or why people choke in restaurants when they have food, there needs to be some way to unblock the blockage to the throat so that someone not breathing can be ventilated. So they opened new packaging, applied the seal to my face and nose, turned it on, and it was on vacuum mode. So that was bad. And by the way, skipping ahead, I pulled my medical records from St. Luke's and my admitting papers. You can't chart like this anymore, but it was primary cause, they didn't say death, but something like that, of acute health problem, whatever, is unknown because of the snafu with the ventilator. And they said then cause of death was suffocation. So I was suffocated. Also, my body temperature was 86 when I was admitted, which is great for a pool temp, but our bodies like to be a little warmer. So I was not a corpse, but I was on my way. Anyway, back to body on the sidewalk. So Again, according to my dad, the medics were frantic. They knew exactly what had happened and flicked the switch, started pumping air in. But our lungs are actually sticky suckers. Well, they are suckers. They stick to themselves. And so lungs usually have to be open under steady air pressure on a ventilator in a hospital. Just that's the best way. In the meantime, I got a violent rush of air, and the air had to go somewhere. So it found its way to my skin, and I blew up like a flesh balloon. That diagnosis was also included. It's called epithelial emphysema. Epithelial emphysema. So the fire department, and these again were volunteers. They're probably farmers, who, there was no ill will towards them on the part of my dad or anyone. They were doing the best they could, as we all should do in this life. So then a man that my dad always called the Good Samaritan came out. There's quite a crowd around my body, I guess, at that time. And he pushed everyone aside, and he was swearing. And he bent down and did what we now call citizen CPR with mouth to mouth and chest compressions. And then he stopped and turned to my dad and said, "I'm not getting a blankety blank, blankety blank, blankety blank." A lot of swear words. Our joke was that we figured he was from Missouri. No one in Kansas swears. So anyway, my dad's memory ends there. I'm married to a paramedic. That's why we were in Japan. My husband for 17 years supervised Seattle's Medic One program, which was the first Medic One program in the world. And so it's just a twist of fate. I married, Mr. Resuscitation. Just ironic, but back to being dead. So my dad's memory ends there. Mine kind of picks up there. But indeed, he does remember that there's a big cheer in what seemed to be like an audience now, as a group of people. And I was breathing on my own, but I was unconscious. So body was thrown to the back of the ambulance. My dad jumped in, off we went to St. Luke's. Things went sour in the emergency room for a while, but it gets back to that, she lived, but don't tell. Because I did write a book called After the Light. And in it, I lived. So, should you read the book, and it is a page turner, I don't want to give anything away at the end. Jeez. So here's what I remember. I remember a woman's voice to my left saying, "I'm not getting a pulse. I'm not getting a pulse." And I turned to her with the same sense of reality, if you will, with which I'm now addressing all of you. And I said, "Of course you're getting a pulse. Otherwise, I wouldn't be speaking." It was just so darn obvious. And it felt that real. She ignored me. In fact, she was getting more and more upset. So I thought, well, I'm out of here. Or words to that effect, thoughts to that effect. And I found myself immediately in a different environment. It was gray, foggy, warm, nice. And emotionally, I felt like I was supposed to be there. It was like, I had so many metaphors. I can only speak in metaphors. It was like this, it was like that, back to that ineffability. But it was like I was at the airport at the gate, and the plane was pulling up to the tarmac, and I had a ticket and a seat assignment. All I had to do was just kind of wait. So I was waiting, and I knew I wasn't alone. I know I was with other things or people, I don't know, but I couldn't see them because of the fog. I want to interrupt and say I've pursued this fog over the decades. As it turns out, in World War II, when this is going back 76 years ago to the bombing again, I'm going to keep circling around that subject. And thank you for the opportunity that is before me to do so. I completely lost my train of thought because now I'm in Hiroshima.
Right. Well, no, you were in the hospital. And
no, I was in the fog.
You're
Oh,
in
no. Oh, no. I interrupted myself. This is what happens when I interrupt myself. Then, the train leaves the tracks. I have learned since then that in World War II, when the world was in the greatest danger, and that's how I went back to Hiroshima, there were more movies made about the afterlife globally than at any other time in cinema history. Any country making movies, Japan, England, Germany, the United States, Canada, Italy, China. I mean, there's tons of movies that were made during World War II. And the afterlife movies all had foggy images as people move from life into death. So there is something to this foggy stuff. And now that I've said that, start looking at old movies about the afterlife and you'll see what I mean. It's fantastic how it's like a collective consciousness or something, but I don't know, it's global. So I'm in the fog and perfectly calm, waiting for something, and then something showed up in the form of such a powerful and bright light. I say brighter than a million suns, but what do I know? I've never stared at the one sun that we have. So what do I know about a million suns? But that is correct. It was that bright. It exploded like under me with such power. I think if I had been in the flesh, I just would have been evaporated. It was that powerful. And in a way, back to Hiroshima, back kind of like a nuclear bomb, except the bomb was of love. And it was what I called God. It was unconditional love. And God is just three little English letters. It means nothing. You could say, Bubba. I mean, it doesn't matter, a certain degree of reverence, but there's no name for this but love. And I like love. And, but I also, though, did say homie home in the presence of this light. Later, in processing everything with my parents, I learned that homie home is what I used to say when I was learning language. So I was probably, 2? I don't remember saying homie home, but that was the big word. We'd be in the car pulling back to the neighborhood, and I was firstborn, so everything got noted and duly recorded and remembered. And homie home is what I used to say, knowing I was getting back to my toys and my crib and all that. Homie home, homie home. So in the presence of what we call God or my creator, I like that too, was homie home.
Wow.
And that's where I was. And I believe that's where we're all going. We're here and then we go homie home. So next, God, if you will, this light just went out in all directions around me. And I could see, which begs the question, how do we see without eyeballs? I haven't solved that yet, but I could see just fine. Thank you. And the light went out in all directions and it was endless. And I somehow knew I was perceiving linear time, and there was no beginning and there was no end. There was no time. But at the same time, in a way I've never really, to my satisfaction, been able to explain, the light was endlessly layering on itself. And again, I was somehow just given to know that those were dimensions, also without end. So it's a complicated situation here. Here on Earth, we have time measured by the sun rising and setting, and our clocks, and our work schedules, or our routines every day. But so how can I communicate that there is no beginning or end to time, and that there are endless dimensions? We live in 3 dimensions, and I can barely navigate that if it comes to parking. So yeah, I don't get it. But anyway, it was wonderful. And then I could ask questions. So I did. I asked questions that a fool would ask. Like, what the heck is going on?
You did?
Why are we born? Well, and the communication was not in words, it was in math and music. And when skeptics say, oh, near-death experiencers just get what they expect, I have no math skills and I have no music skills. In fact, in church, I'm asked to lip sync because it's that bad. So what the heck? I'm perfectly understanding this math and music communication. And by the way, there's been a lot of brain studies since 1970. And it turns out, it seems that the brain does not differentiate between math and music until about age 10.
Wow.
So conventional wisdom now is teach your children or grandchildren some form of music, because that window closes at around age 10, and then learning math skills becomes more of a challenge. So it brings up another big question I cannot answer. What's the connection between our brain and our consciousness? And I am convinced it's different. There are two different things, but that our consciousness and spiritual communication and all of that, which, it's hard to wrap anything in our minds around, does use our brain, though, for good reason. And why not? I mean, these aren't like big toe experiences. We have to perceive with our brain. We have to. And that our brain doesn't know the difference between math and music until later, I find fascinating.
Yes.
Anyway, so this communication was going on, and then I was told I had to go back. And then you should hear me swear. No, I didn't. But I should have, because I felt that strongly about not going back. I argued, and it really was like, yes, no, yes, no.
Uh-huh.
And I'm here to tell you, you can argue with God. God will win. All you want.
Fancy that.
Fancy that. So on earth, there is free will. I'm convinced of that. But not on earth. It's a different playground, and we are not the boss. So I was sent back. I failed to mention that at the DMV in Shawnee Mission, Kansas, I failed parallel parking multiple times. So they actually sent me away to come back another day. I couldn't get my body within 3 to 6 feet of myself, or as it turns out, my car, because when I was sent back, I missed my body by 3 to 6 feet. So here I'd had this fantastic spiritual experience, and all I could think of was a joke about, like, I can't even park myself. And by the way, that's true to this day. Never mastered parallel parking, got a license anyway. So now what? So now again, how am I seeing without eyeballs? If my eyeballs and my brain through which we perceive are yonder, what am I looking at? But I definitely was looking at my body. And then I saw a man I couldn't identify bend down. And as soon as his mouth touched my physical mouth, I went to him and through him and back into my body. So I love sharing that with first responders, because I went through him. And it was an emotional experience, not an organic one, but I knew everything about the guy, how worried he was, but also that what he was full of was compassion. And I had just been with the greatest love of all. Well, compassion is another great form of love. So of course I was drawn to it. He was like my lighthouse. So now I'm back in my body, and it's cold and dark. I'm aware of everything, but I'm not moving my body. I'm just have awareness. And I wonder if people in coma don't have this experience. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many things to question. I don't want to keep questioning them, but I don't know if I'll get all the answers until I get all the answers. But anyway, I beg for God to come back again. Any fool would. I mean, really, I was miserable. This was now probably by now my body was in the emergency room, because I did have that massive temperature drop, and that was the 86 degrees. And I was very, very cold, and it was dank and dark and icky and blech. It was terrible. So I beg for God to come back, and I can whine like the best of them. I get an A+ on whining. drinking it or expressing it, I might add. And so I couldn't say I begged for God, I whined for God. And God kindly showed up again. And I said, I want to go home. I want to go home. So a window thing opened to my right. And there was my heaven. And it was fantastic. It was so beautiful. It was just meadows, fields of grass waving and a breeze and some white pickety fencey things off in the distance and low trees. I'm not sure. But two things. For one, even though it was my heaven, it looked like Earth, it was more like a calendar photo from Kentucky. And when skeptics again say, oh, near-death experiencers get what they expect, I was not expecting Kentucky, and I have yet to visit the great state of Kentucky. I've never been there. So what am I doing? Look, but it did look like a Kentucky calendar photo. The other thing is that the grass wasn't green, it was green. And the sky wasn't blue, it was blue. So it's just so vibrant. And I was aware of, there's that word consciousness again, but the consciousness of every single blade of grass. So what lives on Earth, I think, finds a place to live after Earth. What do I know? But that was my heaven, and I was headed there. And then God, for lack of a better word, and I'm not assigning a gender or even a name to that which we call God, but we have a consensus about what God means. God said, well, wait just a moment. And then there was a flash to my left. And I was told that if I chose to live, that's where I'd be living my life. And all I could see was where mountains met water. So I knew it wasn't Kansas, and I didn't care. I'm off to Kentucky or wherever I was headed. And then there was another flash, and it was a gallery of humans, of people with captions assigned, like best friend, very mundane, best friend, next door neighbor, colleague, mentor. It went on like that. And I was told these were people that I would be seriously interacting with if I chose to live. Again, I'm going over there. Those people were strangers. What do I care? So I was almost through, and I was told if I went through that portal or that window thing, that was my border. I wouldn't be coming back. So, okay, we have an agreement. I'm out of here. And then there was another flash of light, and it was an image of me being of service to other people. And I said, cool. Who knew God was a hippie? Cool meant yes. Cool, dude. I mean, no, I was tricked. I was just admiring the behavior. I wasn't volunteering for it, but it was taken as assent.
Oops.
Yeah, oopsie. So I was back. And I'm not going to say it was pleasant. It was very confusing. My metaphor since then is that we live our lives as we get older. We keep putting down jigsaw puzzle pieces. College, well, that fits. I'll put that piece here. Oh, marrying this fellow. Okay, I'll put that piece here. And we have before us a jigsaw puzzle, and we're looking for the pieces to fit as we complete our puzzle. Well, with a near-death experience, it's like the puzzle pieces go airborne. They fall all over. You've lost your edges. You so carefully, found to outline your jigsaw puzzle. Everything is so confusing. And I was very confused. And the only language I could use at that time involved crying hard. I mean, I had no words. But I knew I was different. I love my family. My family loves me. I don't have a tragic story to tell. I just had to get the heck out. And I, by the way, hated change. I hated change so much that in my life at that time was a boy I met in the 7th grade. His name was Robert Clark. I decided I was going to marry Robert Clark because then I wouldn't have to change the monograms on the towels. That's a good reason to marry somebody. I hated change. I hated it. So I had to leave though. So I did get a driver's license. I did get a car. And I did get the heck out of Dodge, even though I was a Shawnee mission, but still a Kansas reference. So I left on the driveway. My dad was out of town, my mom, our dog, my sister, and Robert Clark. Goodbye. And the only reason they let me go is that relative said, she'll be back in 2 weeks. She hates change. She's not going anywhere. And I wasn't going to argue that because at that time, I-70 was the east-west vein tollway of continental United States. And you had to pay to use it. It wasn't a freeway at that time, it was a tollway. And the weight of my humongous decision to leave Kansas was upon me. And I also failed to mention that I wasn't alone. I had a hamster named Toto. And Toto was in a bird cage in the front seat of my VW Squareback. Also, I wasn't really good at driving. So if I found third gear, I figured that was good enough for highway to work out. You know, and Toto was like in a ball, rolling around and then begging for his life from anyone. And my little hamster hand would come up, help me. So I began to regret my decision to leave. It wasn't going to be 2 weeks. It was going to be 2 minutes. I'm out of here. And I began to talk to God again for lack of anyone else, because Toto was not speaking to me. And I just said, you know, I hate change, God, I hate change. Take me back. I hate change. I hate change. I don't want to change. Then I found out that God is actually a hoot and a half, because on approach to the toll booth was suddenly a big sign that said, change needed. I was like, oh, okay, funny, ha, ha, ha. And I'm sure my mom did this, but I said, I could use a Kleenex now, because I was crying the kind of cry that involves mucus. I mean, out of everything. I mean, my ears were practically free. I needed a Kleenex. And I looked down and there was a white box with tissues in it. And in black print, it said Kimberly Clark, which was my maiden name. And so I was like, okay, good one, honk. So off we went. But there was a tornado outside of Hayes, Kansas.
Oh my gosh.
Which drew me, though, for shelter into a friend from college. And so we leave Kansas. I'm with Toto. We have a tornado outside of Hayes, Kansas. And I wound up living in, and I remain a resident of, Seattle, Washington, which then, as now, is called the Emerald City.
Perfect.
So I'm Dorothy if Dorothy decided to live in Oz and not go back to Kansas. I'm remaining in Oz and have made my home here. So that's the Emerald City part. Things, though, were very interesting. My college friend jumped in the car with me. And when I wrote After the Light, I actually hired a detective to find people I wanted to write about that I had lost contact with. And one of them was Mary Sue Bolick. All the people I talked about have names. And he found Mary Sue. The reason I wanted to have her sign off on a story is that driving between Hayes, Kansas and Seattle, Washington, via lots of other adventures, I felt like there was a presence in the car with such confidence that Mary Sue and I made a peanut butter sandwich on the saltwater flats of Utah, Salt Lake. I think they call it saltwater flats, salt flats. And there was somebody driving the car, and it wasn't Mary Sue and it wasn't me. So I finally find Mary Sue and I said, listen, I'm about to write this really crazy book. And I want to tell you now that I felt such a presence in the car, like an invisibility. And she said, oh, I know. It belonged to me. And she not only affirmed that there was a presence in the car, but she identified him as her guy.
Wow.
So that was like, I love validation. It was so validating. And then time goes on and life continues to be interesting in that I have never applied for a job. I've never applied for graduate school, and yet I've had a great career and went to graduate school and got a master's in social work. And through life is one big synchronicity for me anyway, but through that time, I wound up as a social worker at a place called Harborview Medical Center. Harborview Medical Center at that time and now is the trauma center for 1/4 of the landmass of the United States of America.
Wow.
Yeah, so this was a happen place. And there I was developing a fantastic reputation as a good social worker because I was so comforting. So I'd start to talk to, grieving or about to be grieving family members or someone who's about to die or someone who had died and come back, but that hadn't happened yet. But it's like birds and butterflies came out of my mouth. I was so good at my job. Well, I had died. I
Right.
had come back. I wasn't afraid of death. I had absolute confidence that everything was going to be okay. And it was very convincing.
Mhm.
So, but then came the day, April 77, I believe, where, and my base was the coronary care unit and the intensive care unit. A woman had been admitted from Eastern Washington who was Hispanic, never been in Seattle before, had a massive cardiac event, was brought in unconscious, undergoing resuscitation, and was admitted to the coronary care unit. The next day when I go to work, she needed a social worker. Everyone does, but she needed a big social work intervention because we needed to find her family. We needed to find money. We needed to find an interpreter. So, because my Spanish from high school was not cutting it and her very small English wasn't cutting it. So we found the translator and everything worked out. About 3 days after she was admitted, I was doing chart work on the coronary care unit and a monitor started to go, meh.
Yeah.
And it was Maria, this woman. She was in cardiac arrest. So Harborview is a University of Washington facility. So at Harborview, in any university-related medical setting, you don't just get a doctor and a nurse and a respiratory therapist. You get the thundering herds because you get the medical students, the interns, the residents, the attendings, the nursing students, the visiting nursing, the nursing supervisor, the respiratory therapist. I mean, everyone but janitorial services shows up, So I stood in the doorway and watched Maria being resuscitated, and it was an easy resuscitation. I left when she was breathing on her own and she was still unconscious, but fine. Later in the day, I got paged back up to the coronary care unit because Maria was awake and was agitated and no one could find the interpreter, and Maria's nurse was afraid she was going to agitate herself right back into cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
So what I'm telling you happened is not in real time because it took some, if you've traveled abroad, travel language can be pretty effective. Like, where is bathroom? I mean, you can get through. So that's what we were doing. Here's the bottom line. She told me first that she found herself in a corner of the ceiling looking down. And she was able to tell me who was in the room and what they were doing. And I didn't believe her because Maria was talking to the best but the worst person possible. The best because I'd had a near-death experience. The worst because I'd had a near-death experience. And I had decided I was crazy. I had decided I was so crazy that once going to work, because I entered through the emergency room, there was a woman who looked a lot like me at that time, same age as such, looking miserable on a gurney and 2-point restraints, which are wrists. And I said something to the resident like, what's her deal, whatever. And he didn't look up. He said, oh, she thinks she's going in and out of her body. So we're sending her up to 5 center. 5 center was hardcore mental lockup. That was
Yikes.
for the craziest of the crazies. Well, I knew something about going in and out of my body. So it was like zip it, Kim, and keep it zipped.
Yep.
And I decided if she's crazy, I'm crazy. So now I'm talking to Maria, who doesn't seem to be crazy, but yet she's having this crazy talk. And so I thought, okay, she was well taught by the nursing staff as to what would happen if she went into cardiac arrest. So she's probably just remembering, who was on duty and what equipment was there. And I just kind of blew her off, and too bad. She wasn't finished with me though. Then she said, like that, without any sense of traveling, she found herself outside of her window of her room, looking down on the emergency room entrance. And she described the automatic doors and the curve and the one way of the driveway, all that stuff. And again, I didn't believe her because her room was above the ER. So maybe someone pushed her bed by the window to clean a stain. I mean, again, stupid excuses, because no one's going to unplug a woman that sick to clean under the bed. Also, small detail, every emergency room entrance, at least in this country, has a roof over it, because things happen, like, I don't know, rain,
Right, right.
wind. I mean, so she couldn't have seen through the roof from her window anyway. But at that time, I hadn't checked it out. But then came the corker. She said that she saw a shoe. It was a tennis shoe on a ledge. And the reason she was agitated is that she wanted somebody to get the shoe. She wasn't agitated unhappy. She was agitated, thrilled, because when she was dead, she was traveling around and identifying things. So would someone get the shoe? Thank you very much. And I wanted a beer. I didn't want a tennis shoe. But I'm a good social worker. So I went, okay, where do you think you saw it? And she thought, well, it was maybe 3 or 4 stories above the ground. And that didn't help. But I started out around the building. This building is huge, by the way. You should Google Earth it. It's immense. So I'm walking around the building, and then I see a bird fly in, and then I don't see the bird because the bird's landing on a ledge, which means that I was too close to the building to see very high, to see what might be on a ledge. And I wasn't going to step out because that was the ambulance pathway. And again, they're coming and going. And no, thank you. So I thought, well, I'll go inside. And I started, the Kim, I started on the wrong side of the building, but on the 3rd floor, and made my way around, going, this is such a waste of time. And what's a shoe doing on a ledge anyway? Whoever heard of that? And I get to a room where there was a cart. And on the cart, the carts have 2 shelves, and towels and such will be stacked up. And if a nurse or someone pushed it by the window, then I couldn't see the ledge. Otherwise, I was doing pretty good from the hallway because the windows were down almost to the floor. So fortunately, I knew all the patients on that floor because they'd come out of ICU and CCU. And I still was following people. So I got to this one room where I couldn't see the dang ledge. So I walk out and look down, and I looked down on a large dark blue tennis shoe. Maria had also said, oh, and there's a white lace that goes under the heel, and the little toe area is scuffed up. Should I get it confused with other tennis shoes? I mean, thank you for the details. I don't think I'll need them.
Oh,
But indeed,
can't make this up.
there it was. I mean, right down to the white lace under the heel. And I know what it's like to lose one's abilities to stand upright at that time. I felt like I'd been hit by a flour sack behind my knees. And I went forward and I bonked my forehead against the glass. And out loud, I said, this happened to me. And that moment of my breath on the glass and then disappearing. I remember everything so well, the angle of the light, everything, because that meant I was onto something. So I grabbed the shoe, and then I was a meanie and went back to a room with the shoe behind my back because I couldn't see the little scruffed up place. She had to have that perspective from outside. By the way, as a reminder, she's on the second floor. And by the way, the north end of the second floor. I found the shoe on the west side on the third floor. She wasn't remotely near that shoe. I mean, it was mind blowing. It was staggering to see this. Everything changed for me and everyone I've told this story to, actually. So anyway, the meanie part of me went back down, and I said, with the shoe behind my back, and I said, can you tell me what the inside of the shoe looked like? And she couldn't. I don't know why I did that. But anyway, then I pull the shoe from behind my back, and my Spanish comes forth, and it was, Viva Zapata. So the reason the story of the shoe got around is because of the nursing staff. And back then, and this is going to sound like a big bad lie, but I swear it's the truth. Back then, when one was so sick that one was admitted to the hospital, one actually stayed in the hospital until one was well enough to go home. Now, I know that's unbelievable, but that is the way it used to be. So it wasn't like Maria was a fly-by-night. She was hospitalized for 3 weeks.
Wow.
In the meantime, that shoe became like the Shroud of Turin of Harborview. I mean, everyone came to pay their respects to the humble shoe. When she discharged from the hospital, she gave me the shoe. The shoe is somewhere in our garage. A lot of people have said, show me the shoe and then I'll believe. And it's like, clean my garage and you can have it. So, and then I followed her for 3 years as an outpatient. So this wasn't like a brief, nice to meet you, slam, bam, thank you, ma'am, kind of thing. She was in my life for a long time. Then I took a leave of absence from Harborview. One of my graduate students took my caseload and lost Maria. I never saw her again.
Oh.
So, but that's the first story of someone identifying something out of body, not the last. Other people have reported something similar. I only talk about people I know because then I have a memory, and and even memory, things can go wonky. So, but if you look up the case of Pam Reynolds, she's now deceased, but I knew Pam because she came up to Seattle Ions. But you got to see her story. It's on video. It's more than once. It's amazing. But Pam was having brain surgery, and her eyes were taped shut. She had things in her ears to stop noise. She was under a tent, and her skull had been removed so that her brain is exposed. And her neurosurgeon, she lived in Atlanta, but she was sent to Phoenix because she needed this neurosurgeon, and very few people knew how to do the surgery that Pam needed. And she watched everything and was able to report that he took something out of like a paper bag or whatever, and it looked like an electric toothbrush. She survived and was able to tell the surgeon and anyone who would listen exactly what happened during surgery because she was standing next to him. And of course, changed that surgeon's life. And she's so well spoken. So get on YouTube, look up Pam Reynolds. But then thereafter, Seattle is a Boeing town, so we have a disproportionate number of engineers who live here. And engineers, they're their own crazy cats. I mean, they're not like the rest of people. They're engineers. So I've had a bunch of engineering patients, but one of them was a Boeing engineer who dropped dead on the job and went out of body and identified a very specific piece of engineering equipment that had been misplaced, and it was on top of a tall cabinet or whatever. So
Wow.
he lived, but could get a hold of his coworkers and tell them where to find it. And it was there. So I've
Wow.
written up his story too. And on it goes. Again, how did I see my physical body without physical eyeballs? How was the shoe seen? How was the surgeon seen? And I mean, I don't get it, but I love these stories. The next person, though, that I interviewed, then I began to ask everybody. It's an academic setting. I'll admit I'm ambitious. I wanted to climb the academic ladder and I needed a gig. I needed a research gig,
Right.
and everything bored me until then. So I was going to investigate this. Now, this is before ions. Raymond Moody had just written a book called Life After Life, but it hadn't gotten to my attention. But I was just kind of sit back for this, to be one of the early ions founders and to bring the shoe and other cases to
I'm
world
going to show
attention.
that poster too, the 40-year anniversary after.
Oh, yeah.
I can-
Okay.
Do
Yeah.
you want me to
That's,
show it now while you're talking about it or no? Oh, wait.
and now hold off for a moment.
Okay.
I then decided I was going to ask everybody, what do you remember when you were dead? And for 2 months, I got odd stares, but I persevered and then asked the question of a 16-year-old. Now, this isn't a grown-up. It's a teenage girl who would normally go to Children's Medical Center in Seattle, but she had overdosed because of a boy, wah, 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 and was so close to death, she was brought right into the trauma center. She survived. Her name's Patty. She's also in the book. But I call her Penny. She's one of 2 people that I never found. But anyway, I asked her, yeah, so what do you remember about being dead? I'm kind of boring myself now. And she said, oh, I was with my oompa. I was like, what? And what's an oompa? Well, oompa was the name of her grandpa, but she couldn't say grandpa. She could say oompa. And here this is a suicide attempt. Was there hellfire and brimstone? No. There was a loving oompa who scooped her up, and as if he were sitting in like a chair, sat Patty on his lap and then gave her what for and said, you got to go back there. This, life is precious and you're young. And I gave her the big pep talk and she was sent back. Fast forward, Patty lived and I followed her because I didn't have any teenage girls on my caseload yet. So this was interesting. And she got through all of her mental health care and came out of the other side of that. And I used to take her around to high school assemblies because she could talk to high school students about don't hurt yourself more effectively than anyone. And until she aged out of that, she was on fire. But then, got older, got married, had her own family, and I lost track of her too. So, but anyway, on it went. And so I've talked to a lot of near-death experiencers now between my medical work and my work with Seattle Ions and then attending Ions conferences where there's a huge confluence of NDEers and others of our ilk. So now, Kathy, why don't you show
Okay. Okay, I will. So this is, let me make it bigger if I can. There we go. So what we want everyone to know about is Kimberly is one of the 8 people that are being featured as the founders and pioneers of Ions, which includes, as you said, Dr. Raymond Moody, PMH Atwater, who is known all around the world for her work, Bruce Grayson, who I've got his book after right here, and they did an event with him where Anita Morjani spoke, and she said, apparently the research that the Ions people do is a 60-page form. And when she had doubters, when Anita Morjani, who wrote, I hope you guys know who she is. I've got that book here too. Anyway, she said that she used his work for all the doubters, all the people that gave her a hard time. So what we have is, we are so lucky to have Kimberly here, because you can see that she's a headliner. Woo, woo, woo. For the 40-year anniversary. So what we're looking at is, we're looking at these wonderful, wonderful people that have spent their lives helping this group of people that have had a traumatic experience. A lot of the near-death experiencers are like Kimberly, they didn't necessarily want to come back, and they didn't have words for it. And so when we do the events, whether they're online or in person, which in person's super cool, but when they're online or in person, you find that a big part of it is experiencer lounge. There's people that want to tell their stories, and they need the language. They listen, but they want to talk too, correct? Kimberly, you must find that in Seattle's.
Yes. People can come into those experiencer rooms pretty fragile, but because of the pandemic, something has popped up in its place, because their groups aren't meeting on the ground.
Right.
Some are about to. There's a group in Florida that meets outside in a park, obviously a small group. Seattle Ions attracts between 55 and 125 people, so we cannot meet outside.
Yeah.
Anyway, now there is something called Ions Sharing Groups Online, or ISCO.
ISCO.
So ISCO, if you go to ions, iands.org, the sharing groups are free. There are several throughout the week, and it's a way for near-death experiencers to still virtually gather. The advantage for the virtual aspect instead of the on-the-ground aspect is that people from around the world can attend. And it really has become global. It's fascinating to talk to near-death experiencers. By the way, after the Netflix series was dropped, by the way, and if you write to me, please do, but I have 4,122 unanswered emails.
Yeah, I know. I was one of them.
Tsunami of things. But anyway, the second person to reach out to me was from Nepal.
Wow.
So yeah, there is someone, a Nepalese in Nepal, who had a near-death experience. It's global. So, and you don't have to have a near-death experience to join the sharing groups. There's sharing groups. You can talk about your lucid dream, or your premonition, or the ghost you saw, or I'm afraid of death, or my mom just died, or my dog just died. Oh my gosh, I have so many stories about pets in the afterlife. That's a whole nother topic.
Oh, you need to write a book about that. Well, what we want to make sure everyone knows is that what's delightful about the IONS conference being online, it not only is it the 40th anniversary, which is super cool. The second part that's really amazing is that when you buy a ticket, you actually get 90 days to watch all of it. When you go in person, there's 4 different rooms or more going all at the same time. And you really have to go, uh-oh, which one am I going to go to? Well, once you have it online, instead of watching movies, TV and movies, you can watch the IONS event, and you'll see that just like as Kimberly's talking about, the love and the compassion and the desire to bring out the best in everyone is sort of a trademark of this group. It's very open-hearted, and so that it just feels good. It's amazing, correct?
Yeah, the sincerity is off the charts, even when it's virtual. And also, I might add, until August 12th, today being the 5th,
Yes,
there's an early bird rate of $74. Now
right.
on the ground, it's, 300 and some odd dollars to be at the conference. They're virtual. They just have to cover, the expenses of the techs and stuff. So between now and the 12th, it's $74 for the entire thing, which, except for the workshops. The workshops are a separate fee.
Do you want me
But,
to show the website real quick?
Sure.
I have it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kimberly, what she's talking about is there is an early bird that if you register right away, and there are 2 days of workshops that are new this year. We've never done that before, where you can take a Reiki class and other classes with healers and noted practitioners for the second day. So it's September 1st is a Reiki class. September 2nd is a whole series of different classes. And then September 3rd is when there's 100 different speakers, over 100. And Eben Alexander, who I don't know if you guys ever read any of his books, he's going to be back again. And I do get to interview him on Conscious Business Zone as part of the promotion for everything. And him and her, and I already did her. So, and her. So these people, they're just so cool. And Peter Panagore, I love him. And then there's 2 movie premieres that they have at night, which in person, if you were there in person, you would have popcorn and stuff watching the movies. But anything else you want to say? Oh, and my friends Andy and Jonathan Goldman are going to offer music. So this is at virtualconference.ions.org. And Kimberly's a mainliner here. I mean, we got top of the line. There she is. So
You're so flattering.
oh, you're so, yeah. Well, I mean, what are you gonna say? It's like your life. That this isn't like you can separate it, that this is what you do and this is who you are. It is who you are.
They're combined. By the way, I'm an Olympics holic. So I have recorded every moment of the Olympics, but I don't have the time to watch them all. So it may take me till Christmas, but by golly, I'm going to watch every event and give my due respect to the Olympians who are, pushing themselves to the max. But I bring that up because a couple of nights ago, someone was describing a swimmer as the best in the world. And the commentators were saying, just having, color commentary talk while they were going back and forth in the pool. Wonder what it's like to be the best of something in the whole world. And I thought, oh, me, I'm the best at something. I am the best at group support for near-death experiences.
You are. And the thing is, you make it fun and not scary, because a lot of the people I've met, that Claudia's here, Claudia Edge, who I interviewed also, she's part of the IONS event. A lot of people didn't tell anybody for 30 years. They just, because of the fear of being high, she wrote high. Anyway, does anybody have any questions for Kimberly? Because I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap it up coming up soon. Noelle, you have one?
No, I just want to say that I went to the IANS online last year.
Yes.
And it was really super duper.
Yeah, it is.
And for some reason, I don't know what it was, but quite a while ago, this near-death experience, I read some book by a soldier, I think his last name was Ritchie, who had a near-death experience.
George Ritchie.
Yes. So I read that book like it was his experience as a World War II soldier having a near-death experience. And then he wrote it up. And I think he was instrumental in the whole program, Raymond Moody and everything that got started at the University of Virginia.
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
these are actually my friends. And I'll tell you, George Ritchie started it all.
Yeah.
And his NDE, I cite a lot. It was prolonged, one of those prolonged, but it included two things of note. One is that his guardian angel took him to a bunch of places. It could be a movie. I wish somebody would make a movie out of his story. It's amazing. But anyway, and he's, rest in peace now. But they went to a bar. Of course, World War II, a lot of soldiers were drinking beer when they had a chance. But what George was able to see are invisibilities above many of these men drinking. And the invisibilities were waiting for a certain level of inebriation to occur. And then that entity was going to slip into the body and enjoy the high. Like,
I remember that so
oh my
specifically.
God.
So
Yeah.
my husband says, why were you dancing on tables last night? That embarrassed me. I said, it wasn't me. I had a couple of drinks.
Exactly. It was an entity.
This
Thank
entity
you.
came in, wanted to do the can. What could I do?
That's what she said.
But
And the entity wasn't wearing underpants. Not my fault.
no, that book is so fascinating. And that kind of got me started. And this is way before I met Kathy or, started doing any of this stuff, looking at this near-death stuff. But, we had our first year, the Co-Creators Convergence, about 9 years ago at Sunrise Ranch. That's how I met Kathy, Flo, and a lot of other folks here. And we had one person come there, and he was a bit different from us. You know who I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
And, I dropped my keys out in this field, and he goes over and goes, here they are. And I'm going like, how the hell did you find those? I mean, he was doing all kinds of stuff like this.
Yeah.
And as we had that conference, it came out that he didn't understand what a near-death experience was, and that he had actually had one.
Of course.
Wow.
Yeah. And then came back with these, incredible, I'm going to say abilities. I'm not going to say they're talents. It was more like, when you go on that other side and, come back and, all of a sudden you're headlining for an organization, it's just how it happens.
Yeah. We don't know about my underpants though, but yeah. I'll go with that.
Well, Claudia wanted to say something too. Claudia, do you want to get on too? Because she says, hi, I remember your book. Your ghost story scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, not every experience I've had has been Jolly Wally.
So Claudia, do you want to come
Can you
on?
hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you want to show yourself?
I'm on oxygen right now, so I'm just
Oh.
laying down. I'm
Okay.
I'm a COVID long hauler, so
Okay.
I'm practicing my speech with Janet that will be happening during the convention. So right now I'm just trying to catch up a little energy.
Okay. Okay.
I'm enjoying listening, but I just wanted to let Kimberly know that story just scared the crap out of me.
I got to buy the book just to hear the story.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it is a page turner.
Yeah.
The book has all kinds of things in it. My husband calls it Kimmy Unzipped. I came back with one doozy of a gift, and that was discernment. I may not be able to find your car keys in a field, but I can see things that other people can't.
Oh.
So that includes, dead people, what we call angels, guides. I don't know what they are, wizardy things, and scary things. They're all present. It's a crowd. And I used to be able to see them with my very eyeballs. Kathy, do we have time for the angel story, the I-5 angel?
Well, are you okay, Noelle, or what?
Oh, I find this fascinating. Flo, are you okay? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could.
And thank you, Claudia, for speaking up. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm
Oh,
so
no
glad
worries.
you're here. Thank you.
You guys are cracking me up. It's wonderful.
Oh, good.
Thank you. This is really entertaining, so I
Yeah.
appreciate the call.
Well,
Who knew death could be so lighthearted, right?
Right.
I think it's hilarious, but that's just me.
Please take all this stuff too serious. Lighten up.
Exactly. So there
It's
are
supposed to
scary
be-
things out there. Claudia is right. And I wrote about them in terrifying detail, and I actually withheld. My editor, After the Light was like a real book. It was published by William Morrow and Company in hardback, and then book on tape with not Simon and Schuster, but something just like that.
Our universe or something.
No, that's currently.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, there's a hardback and then book on tape with, I think maybe it is Simon and Schuster. I'm not going to get out and look. And then a paperback through. So I just kept getting sold. My contracts kept getting sold. And there was a paperback, and then it was picked up by Penguin, and Penguin was purchased by iUniverse. And now that's the form that you get the book. It's in its fourth printing.
Well,
But,
it says on here Avon.
Oh, that was a paperback. Thank you.
HarperCollins,
Harper
Avon,
Collins.
and iUniverse.
Yeah, thank you. And it's
you're
also
Tell us the name of the book
also
again.
After the Light. Subtitle is, there's two subtitles. One of the subtitles is The Spiritual Path to Purpose. Depends on who's selling the book. I didn't make up my title or my subtitle. The other one is What I Learned on the Other Side That Will Change Your World, which
Okay, tell
to me
us
sounds
what
like a
happened
huge
that isn't in the book, please, please.
okay. And I
Now I
don't think
can't.
this story is in the book, but it's my favorite story. So there's scary things out there, but they're like flies at a picnic. You can just knock them back. There's beautiful, wonderful, helpful, stunning things out there. Some we call angels. And I have got, and back to After the Light, I have packed so many angel stories in there. I've packed everything in there. I threw it all in because I also had cancer at that time. So I thought, well, if I'm checking out, people need to know. So anyway, my favorite angel story, Kathy has heard because I popped it in a time on her show.
Yep.
So thank you for the opportunity to share. So I'm seeing angels since my near-death experience, among the other things I mentioned. And we're talking angels. They are angels. I mean, I can't function and see an angel. I stop in my tracks, pretty much would throw myself on the ground and, go, oh, holy, holy. I mean, their vibe is incredible. How I perceive angels is as great big, they're really humongous, and have shape, have gender. I have seen what I perceive as female angels and male angels and like non-binary angels. I mean, angels without a gender assigned to them. And then also I've never seen wings, but I have seen flight. And what we call wings might be just the movement of something behind them. I don't know. And darn it, if any angel has ever sat down for an interview with me, it's like curses. But I don't even exist for angels. I'm completely persona non gratis. No angel ever pays attention to me, even though I'm the one, throwing myself on the ground going, oh my gosh, it's an angel. And I have so many angel stories, you all, but here's my favorite. So I'm leaving Harborview Medical Center and I have to get onto I-5 southbound, another big transportation vein in our country, but it goes from Mexico to Canada. I pull onto I-5 to go home after work, and all I can see are brake lights, which if you live in any big city in rush hour, you're not getting home for a while. So it's like, okay, just settle in. I was in the far right-hand lane, and there was a fellow to my left swearing and honking so loud. It was like, okay, dude, inappropriate behavior, as if his honking and swearing was going to move his lane of traffic ahead anyway. It's like, no offense, Bob, but sometimes men. Well, anyway, so I finally thought enough. The language was terrible. The honking was horrible. So I turned to give him the stink eye. And moms know how to do that too. So I was like, I was gonna give him what for, but I couldn't because I turned and he was in a 2-seater sports car. There was an angel in the passenger side. How I also see angels, this is a glass of tea, but how I see angels is like this. I told you they had shape. So I could, like the edge of the glass, you can see the shape, but you can also see through it. So you can see like my couch and all that. And so I can see through angels, but it's a distorted perspective, like they're glass or something. But they have shape and they have faces and they use those faces. And for comforting or for rescuing, I've seen it all, I think. I think I've seen an angel doing everything possible that angels could do, including taking the deceased out of the coronary care unit. Anyway, back to I-5. So this swearing Yahoo, excuse me for my judgmental word, but he was that jerk. He had an angel, and the angel was so big, but it was scrunched up. So I think if the angel had straightened up, the angel's head would be above the roof of the car, and then I would have had a heart attack and died right there. The angel would come for me. I couldn't believe it. He's all scrunched up. So here's the scene. Here's me and my normal angel response. It's as good as it gets, is that. And then here's the angel looking straight ahead, acting like every angel anywhere, ignoring me. So again, here I am. And here's the angel. The guy is still honking and swearing. The angel, in the only act of an angel acknowledging my existence anywhere, slowly turned to me, looked me right in the eye and went, what can I do? He's my guy. I didn't invent him. He's on his own. This is an assignment. You know, I don't get it any more than you. It's very annoying. And then he turned around and faced forward. And in the meantime, I'm still. And I'm so happy that we weren't driving because I would have been dangerous. And then his lane moved forward before mine and off they went. And it was like, what the heck just happened? So that's my favorite angel story because it's about me.
Right. Well, I think a lot of the people that have had near-death experiences or spiritually transformative experiences sense angels and guides, and they have a trust of there's a very strong trust after their experience.
Absolutely. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, this has been
mouth
really.
off about this.
Say what?
I said, thank you for allowing me to mouth off about this. I
Of
appreciate
course.
the opportunity.
Wow.
Just love it. I don't know, Flo, do you want to jump in here at all?
I just want to say thank you for sharing because it was really entertaining and informative, you know.
Now, you don't see any angel like right here or right here or like right here or anything, do you?
No, but I did once, and that was it. Oh, Bob, he's so funny. He's giving you bunny ears. There's your angel.
Yeah, that's true. That's
When
true.
the Netflix show was broadcast, Ions had an event, which I hosted, with one of the people featured at the Seattle Ions meeting, Jose Hernandez, and the producer / director of the series and the author of the book Surviving Death that the series is loosely based on. So it was an hour and a half and we're talking, and all of a sudden I look up and I'm in my office, that's my couch back here, and looking at the monitor though, not behind me, was an angel. And I couldn't believe it because I don't usually see them so much anymore. I can sense them. But this angel might as well have had its feet up on an ottoman smoking a cigar. It was like whatever happened, the angel was like, oh, check, we can let down now. This happened. And that broadcast was so very important. And again, completely disacknowledged me, but that I could perceive an angel through a video,
Wow.
and looking, I mean, it was amazing. So I guarantee you that there are angels and others. It's crowded. I call them invisibilities. It's deceased loved ones. It's the interesting and interested invisibilities who drop in and out. Some of them also serve a function for us. And I think the cast moves. In my own case, I think I'm punishment. That when angels are sent to me, it's like the angels go, oh no, not the Kim. No, I'll be good, please. Not the Kim, not the Kim. Because I am fearless and reckless and do things that would give any angel a headache. So we all have them in multiples. It's not just me, of course.
One of the things that I loved when we talked, one of the last times we talked, I think, but it may have come up more than once, was that how you talked about your husband and you, that he's your anchor. Because I find that a lot of the people that have the capacity to go out of their body or sense the other side, or to have these superpower skills, a lot of times they're with people that have no interest at all in any of it.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
cannot
how
be
do
married to
opposites-
anyone interested in the subject. Someone's got to pay the bills. But how I bonded with Bob and Noel, I didn't say he was my anchor. I said that he was like my Ben Franklin.
That's right. That's
So
right.
he's on the ground with a string
With the kite.
and I'm the kite.
Right.
So
That's right.
without
That's right.
Ben
Yeah.
Franklin,
That's
the kite of Kim would just float away and never be grounded. So what he brings to the relationship is that groundedness. What I bring to the relationship is the electricity.
Mhm.
yes.
So that is
Awesome.
how we function. Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that, because you make life so much more fun. You really do. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you for this electrifying evening.
Oh,
And,
come on, Noel. I love being with all of you. I mean, I look forward to the day where there's physical hugs involved, because I'm going to squeeze the stuffing out of all of you. You're going to be like rag dolls. And Claudia, that includes you. You have to be well, because
Yes.
there's Kim Squeezies coming your way.
Ah.
And
This year is online, but next year is in Salt Lake City.
oh,
So start making your plans for this time of year next year to go to Salt Lake City, because usually there's about 500 or more of us. You
Yeah.
can imagine with 500 or more heart-opened people what that room feels like. It's like,
wow.
it's its own experience.
City.
Yeah, people get high. I mean,
yep.
you get high without benefit of drugs or alcohol, but it's a high. And it's just amazing. It's just, yeah. So
Fun.
do not miss an IONS conference like ever.
Yeah.
I never have. Another one of my, oh, Peppy. Oh, there's Magi.
Magi, yes. Sorry.
Oh my
she-
gosh.
Oh, you're so cute.
She's turned into a wiggle worm now.
Yeah, she's been chewing on her toys back there. I disturbed her.
Oh,
Well, at least
So-
it's not your shoe.
it's the Madonna thing, mother
There you
and
go.
child.
And then another story, another time to be on, not only would be angel stories, dead people stories, but pets in the afterlife.
Yeah,
I
we
would
could-
love to hear pets in the afterlife.
So
I mean,
invite me back, because I have
Oh.
much to share.
you're
Oh,
invited. Yeah, I swear my dog Boomer sent me this dog.
Oh,
It's been a while since we've had a dog, and I said, send me a really, really sweet little girl. And this dog is really extra special.
She didn't specify how sharp the teeth would be, so that just a very sweet personality.
Oh,
Energetic.
oh. Well, thank you so much. And thank you
Wonderful
for
evening.
Kimberly. Thank you. As always, it's a joy. And thank you
Kathy.
everyone
Thank you,
for,
Kimberly. Thank you. It was a great interview.
A really
Thank you.
wonderful evening. Thank you so much. And thank you, Kathy, for jumping in here. I really appreciate that.
sure.
Okay.
Well, and
God
hopefully-
bless everybody.
yeah.
Whoever
Thank
you
you.
want to say.
Well,
but-
come experience the IONS conference because there's more Kimberly conversations and there's over 100 people like Kimberly that'll be sharing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is.
Thank you again.
There you go.
Close and tell us the website one more time.
Okay, it's virtual conference.ions.org. I'll put it in the chat again, virtual conference.ions.org.
I was just thinking about the people on replay won't have access to the chat.
Okay, well, we can
I'll put that
it
in there.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you, there it is.
We'll put it on the edit when we edit this tomorrow.
Yeah, and there is an early bird now. So it's not very expensive to be a member of IONS, and then you can do all of this